Afternoon. Hi there. How are you? My name's Pat Campbell, radio talk show host from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you are listening to The Rational Male 101. This is episode number 40. This one's going to deal with choreplay, couples therapy, and the sexual economy. I am joined by the godfather of the manosphere, Rollo Tomasi, the cult leader himself, the Rational Male. How you doing, buddy?
Good. My mullet is growing out nicely. I'm almost a year in, so
pretty soon you're going to be able to coach college football here in Oklahoma.
Mississippi mud flap. Well, I was thinking as soon as I've got it out to a length that I want it to be, then I'm probably going to go without the beanie and go without the hat. So
that's a radical thing. You know, the first time I saw you, you had more of like a crew cut going on.
I did. I'll tell you the reason that I actually did it is because my mom is she's in like a skilled nursing facility right now.
Right.
And she always remembered me with my long hair when I was in my 20s. And like, I cut my hair when I was about 30 years old. And I used to have it really down, like halfway down my back when I was in my rock star 20s. And she asked me, she said, I really wish you would grow it out. And so she just hit 80. She just had her birthday last weekend. And so she asked me to do it. So it's kind of like her last wish. So I've been growing it out.
Interesting.
I wanted to do it too. So.
I want to get into a couple things here. What we're going to start with is this choreplay deal. And I told you a story on my local program before. We had a candidate for a pretty big office, and there was an incident where somebody had trespassed on his property and had taken pictures of him in the backyard, working in the pool, topless with a Kung Fu Panda hat on. It was just ridiculous, man boobs hanging and everything. But we got into a discussion. I said, well, first of all, what were you doing? He said, I was doing my honey-do list. And I'm thinking, oh, geez. And it's his list of stuff that he's got to do for his wife so that at the end of the rainbow, if he's a really good boy, he gets the doggy treat, which includes 5 minutes of starfish sex. But, at least leave my program with your integrity intact. If you're doing that, don't tell everybody. For God's sakes, don't tell everybody. So this story, and it's interesting, too, because when I put this on Facebook, and other social media, I was very interested in seeing women's response to this. Okay. So the story is, this is from Best Life. So a man goes viral for sending sexy photos of himself doing chores for his girlfriend. He said, I thought it might be nice for her to come home to a clean house. He told Best Life. So this thing goes viral. Of course, the lady that's writing this article for Best Life thinks it's wonderful, and that if more men were to do that, relationships would just improve almost instantaneously overnight. Keep in mind, this is a guy, he's not even married to the chick. And already we're negotiating for sex. I mean, get out now while you still can. If you got to go to this extent, he emasculates himself. It's like, I'm the bitch. Look at me. Why not rent Molly Maid or somebody else to come over to the house? But, nothing guarantees that your wife or your girlfriend is going to give you a red hot, whatever you call it, monkey sex, like doing the chores for. And nothing could be further from the truth. We've talked about this in the past on the program. And I think somebody tweeted a picture of this guy with the girlfriend too. Yeah,
it's right here.
You got it up on the screen?
This is one right there.
That's one, but keep going.
There's another one down there. That's the mommy. That's the mommy. I love you.
Yeah, she's all about herself, and he's just like. The last time I saw a kiss was like that was Jeff Bezos.
Yeah,
his new babe. With that turtleneck stuck out, just desperately trying to kiss. What's this say? What does this say?
Says, Michael, you are the best boyfriend ever. Can't wait for our getaway this week.
Oh, at the end of the rainbow. There it is.
Yes.
There it is.
Something to look forward to. I think what's interesting about this is this is going to end up being, I don't know, maybe I'm calling this the wrong way, but like it kind of locks into what we were talking about on your show. Let me get this over. There we go. On your show on Friday, when we're talking about the sexual economy or the marriage economy and how more and more men are unemployed right now, what this seems to me is here's this guy. I want everybody to know that we didn't just choose these topics at random to just throw these out there. Each one of these topics that we're going to talk about today kind of dovetails into the other one. So what we talked about on Friday was the sexual economy or the marriage economy, right? So there are less and less marriageable men. because men are unemployed or underemployed right now, and
the woman's making more, they're earning more than him, so they don't want to lower themselves and get somebody who's not at least equal with them, if not above them.
Right, and that's going to be, I think, there's going to have to be ways that guys are going to try to find, like, novel ways to find to increase their value, to be sort of like a value added kind of thing. Because I think that on some sort of subliminal level that women understand that the power dynamic in their relationships, whether it's boyfriend and girlfriend or it's married or whatever, that the guy making more money than she does is either a necessity or it's something of an imbalance to women. Because I think that in sort of the evolved, lizard brain sense, there's this power dynamic that goes on that says that if she's making more money than him, then he's a burden. And we've talked about the burden of performance before. And so if that is something that is sort of in the back of her mind, or it's in the back of the guy's mind, even if you say, hey, we live in this egalitarian marriage, or we live in this, it's 50-50 and it doesn't matter. I'm secure enough in my masculinity to be okay with her making more money. That's fine. But here we are. I'm looking at guys today who are just simply unemployed. And when I look at this picture, when we were looking at this whole thing went viral, right? So the guy's trying to, it seems to me, like the guy is trying. And he's unemployed. He's at home all day. You can see just from the pictures that
does it say that?
I don't know. I'm not really entirely sure. I don't think they covered that. I don't assume
anything on that. I mean, even if he is working and doing that, it's still it's so beta. And we've done a thing in the past too, where guys do traditional male chores. That actually is a turn on.
Right. Here, you know what? Let me run back here to the.
While you're doing that, let me throw this out here too. This is like a pet peeve of mine, and I'm not going to get too specific here because I know a couple of cases right in my area where you have a woman that's professional, doctor, lawyer, making buku bucks, gets married to a guy, and the guy does nothing. The guy is a freaking leech, just sucks off the tit. And finds all sorts of stuff to get involved in and drama and that kind of crap, but isn't doing what he should be doing, which is helping the household. Even when they're not raising kids. I couldn't, I don't know about you, but I could not be in a situation where my wife or spouse was earning more than me. Call it a weakness, call it male ego, whatever. That would be like a double dog dare me to go out and double what she's earning. I could not sit at home unless I was, incapacitated in a wheelchair or something or in a bed, knowing that she's making more than, because I'm now, I'm looking, I owe her because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I am supposed to be the provider.
And I think the reason that you would think that, and most guys do think that, or they feel some sort of like disharmony, I guess, in their relationship, is because they understand, again, on that subconscious level, that women-based attraction on competence. That's part of hypergamy, is selecting for dominance and competence. And competence is one of those things that says, like, well, the guy has to be competent enough to provide for a family, to provide for me, to keep a house over our heads, to be able to protect me, to be a guy who can defend me if that's necessary. And so when a woman is making more money than the guy, here's what's going to happen is people are going to watch this and they're going to say, well, that's just you being insecure, or that's just, imagine being this insecure in your masculinity that you wouldn't let a woman make more money than you. Well, the thing is in an evolved sense, in the most visceral sense, we feel that that's wrong. We feel that if a man should be the one that is asking the woman, he needs to be the one who initiates. He needs to be the one who protects. He needs to be the one who pays for the date. Right? He needs to be the guy who is going to step up and be the guy that, that not only just turns her on, but the guy that is a good long-term prospect as well. Because when we talk about hypergamy, when we talk about alpha seed and beta need, that beta need side of things is all about competence. It's all about having the capacity to keep a family secure. And part of that is making them more money. The other part of that is that and we'll talk about this later when we get to the marriage economy side of things, is that the power dynamic is defined by whoever's making the most money. And I've said this before, and this is a basic principle that I have in the very first book, which is the cardinal rule of relationships, which is the one in the relationship who needs the other the least is the one that has the most power. And so when a woman is making this kind of money, the guy is sort of like a guest in her house, even if he is not, even if he's still kind of pulling his weight a little bit, even if, like, say she's making 100,000 and he's making 50,000. I'm just throwing those out there as round numbers. That's 50,000 bucks that he ain't making. And so what do we hear in popular culture right now is women will say, well, I can make my own damn money. I walk like the boss, talk like the boss. I can do all of these things on my own. Why do I need a man? I don't need a man, but I want a man. Well, what if she doesn't want you anymore? Because for a woman to kick a guy out of the house is dirt simple these days. To get a woman out of the house is next to impossible because of the Duluth model of feminism. But let me throw that guy serves at her pleasure so long as he doesn't make the same amount of money.
Let me throw a couple things out. Now we're living when you got married, when I got married, things were different. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's more and more couples now where the female out earns the male. Right. Mm-hmm. Now, if the female's cool about it and not a dick, okay, mm-hmm. that relationship can work. But if she mm-hmm. lauds it over you, if she constantly reminds you who's mm-hmm. really dominant, who's really holding the cards, mm-hmm. that relationship is destined to fail. I've got a friend, I won't identify, but he was in the military for about 10 years. His wife is a doctor now, okay? Mm-hmm. He paid for all of medical school. She's mm-hmm. making pretty good bucks now. She's making, like, what do you tell me, $380,000, $400,000 a year, all right? Mm-hmm. He's only making 78, but he's okay with that because, first of all, she's not a dick, okay? Mm-hmm. And she knows in her hindbrain, wherever, that she wouldn't be where she is unless it was for him covering all of her, mm-hmm.
Being supportive,
the school bills and everything else. Mm-hmm. All of that was paid off by him. Mm-hmm. And so they have a mutual respect for each other. That's a relationship that works. Mm-hmm. He told me point blank, the minute that, that changes, that dynamic changes, mm-hmm. and things could go sour real quick.
Yeah.
Well, it really depends on the temperament of the woman. But guys, mm-hmm. I know a guy's 40 years old. His wife works, I think, 3 different jobs. Okay. Mm-hmm. He does nothing. Mm-hmm. except go on social media and bitch. Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, you're 40 years old. Get off. I mean, it's the only thing that could be worse would be living in his parents' basement. Mm-hmm. He's a leech. He is an opportunist. He's a manipulator, and he's taking advantage of her, and she doesn't even know it.
Right. And the funny thing is like when I threw this out there, I think after you and I had the discussion on Friday, I talked with Ryan Stone, hit me up on Twitter, and he says, well, there's a lot you can make a case for a lot of guys who are just sort of mooches, like you were just saying, right? Because I know several instances of this in friends of mine and friends of my wife's. When we used to live up in Northern California, like a lot of the guys up in the Tahoe area, you would always see the sort of unemployed snowboard guys who, they were lifties in the ski season, but they pretty much were living on the bucks of their girlfriends who were, working wherever they were working at. And generally it was because the guys just simply wanted to be like a professional snowboarder, or I knew lots of musicians who would do the same thing. They, what do you call a bass player without a girlfriend? Unemployed, right? What I think is interesting is like there's still that dynamic where some women, depending on who they are and what they're, I don't want to just rate this as like a self-esteem issue, but like I know lots of instances where there's an unemployed musician. He's playing in a band. He's living in his girlfriend's apartment, and she's happy as a clam to have him there because he's alpha enough and he's creative enough and he's sexy enough, and the alpha seed side of hypergamy is definitely made up for in that. So she can put off her priorities for a guy who actually has a job and actually pulls his own weight because she doesn't care. She's making like 3 times as much money as he could possibly make.
That's going to have a limited shelf life. It's just like good looks. If you're going to marry a woman based solely on her looks and her sexual performance, I got some bad news for you. it's got a sell by date. It's going to expire. There better be some other things that you have to offer. In fact, I don't know if you remember this, but one of Tom Leykis's best calls ever was a guy that was about 45. Mm-hmm. He's with the girlfriend. The girlfriend's carrying all the weight, and he's an aspiring guitar player. And Leykis just breaks it down. He goes, "How much you make in a year?" And he goes, "Well, 29,000 a year." Leykis just unloads on the guy. Mm-hmm. And he says, "You want to thank your lucky stars that she's even letting you live in her house." Mm-hmm. He says, "You're a failure. You're a leech." And that's exactly what he was. So he was living off of her.
I don't know that this is the case here, but I'm just going to read this really quick. It says, one Friday night in March, Murray was volunteering at the shelter, and that's the guy, the name of the guy, says, found himself with a little free time on his hands. I'm sitting around the house doing nothing, he recalled. I figured I could watch TV for 5 hours, but then I saw that the house was a mess and thought it might be nice for her to come home to a clean house. Okay, so that's a nice sentiment. I get that. Like when people say, "Well, Rolo, don't you wash the dishes at your house or something?" Yeah, of course I do. If it's a nasty mess that's sitting in the sink, yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Hold on. You wash your dishes?
Of course.
Don't you have a dishwasher?
Well, I put the dishes in the dishwasher. Okay. I mean,
okay. All right.
I do. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, no, not by. I mean, who washes dishes by hand? Right?
Okay.
Maybe my grandmother.
All right.
But so there's domestic chores. Like, I mean, for as far as I'm concerned, I take care of things that go on the outside of the house. I take care of the cars. I take care of the trash. I take care of picking up the dog poop, which there's quite a bit with 2 greyhounds.
A manly thing.
Yes, I take. Well, and that's why I want to get at here, because that's really the first part of chore play in all of this. Now, the thing that gets me is the thing that gave me sort of a suspicion that maybe this guy is unemployed and he decided to do all this kind of stuff is because he decided to tweet it out, and he decided to put it all out there on social media. Because once you do that, once you start taking pictures of you doing the laundry and washing the dishes and walking the dog and all of these things that he put in this, that are in this the story right here, to me, that is give me affirmation. Please give me confirmation. Give me affirmation.
It is beta, and it's also a feminine quality. Think about girls with Instagram, women with Instagram. They need that affirmation. This guy he's emasculated. He's feminine is what he's doing.
Well, he's looking for, okay. So the act of doing that, yes, you definitely have a case for that. It could be of sort of a female mindset or feminine mindset, but the guy would not have done this had there not been some kind of social convention that already taught him that he's going to get positive reinforcement by doing this. So, and what that draws us to is the chore play dynamic, because there's this idea. And if you go and you look at the reason that this went viral is because so many women go, "Oh, finally a man who'll do the dishes. Finally a guy who'll walk the dog. Finally, when I come home from work, I don't have to come home and do laundry." That kind of stuff. There's women would love men to believe that if they did all of these domestic chores, that it would increase their chances of getting laid. It will increase. And first of all, it doesn't. And I'll tell you why, because the chore play myth has been around for a very long time. It's been around for at least 10 years.
When I put this up on Facebook, okay, I was particularly interested in the response of women. Women overwhelmingly agreed it was nice. Notice the word nice, sexy. That's not going to get her hot and bothered.
No,
doing all those things. It's like, you got a maid. Right. Is that what you want to be? I mean, do you want to be the maid for your wife, for your girlfriend? No, there wasn't a single woman who said, "That's hot. I want him."
Right. I've written probably one of my more seminal posts, I think, is chore play. And chore play was sort of coined from some other people who were talking about chore play. And then so I wrote an essay about this. And now I wrote this essay based on a post that I had put together on the SoSwap forum, because I was sort of taking this to task at the time, because there was an author, I think she was a blogger or something, I forget who I think she writes for the Today Show or something like that. And this was back when Today had a blog. Now, back in 2008, I didn't have a blog. I didn't have a book. I was just a moderator on the SoSwap forums, and this came up, and we've been talking about this since 2008. And I was like, no, this is BS. Let me give you a million different reasons why this is a social convention and why guys would love for this to be true. So I started talking about that in 2008. Then later on, in 2012 or 2013, the same author comes back. Her name's Diane Mapes. She comes back and writes another post, this time saying, well, guess what? Remember when we talked about Choreplay and we said the title of the blog post was women make passes at guys who wash glasses, or something like some cutesy little thing like that. And she had said something to the effect that she was at some sort of house party and some guy offered to wash the dishes while they were at that house party. And she explained something to the effect that these the women who were there looked at him with quote unquote unbridled lust because he was washing dishes. That was a quote. If you want to read that post, I put it in the description already because I knew we'd be talking about this. But then again, in 2013, she goes against it. She says, no, actually, that was wrong. Women get hot when guys do chores, but only when they're manly chores. Only when it's like splitting wood or mowing the lawn, or he has to take his shirt off to go and lift heavy objects, or he has to go and pile, firewood up for in the fall or something like that. When a man is doing manly work, that is when women at least report that they feel more amorous towards their husbands or whatever else. So now we have to qualify it. So, okay, go ahead.
Quick question on the manly chores. Mowing the lawn. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think we're both in agreement that's a guy thing, yes. Right? Okay. Would you let your wife mow the lawn? Could you, unless you were like had a broken leg, I don't know. You were out of town for a couple weeks.
I would be pissed off. I would be pissed off if, like, I'm on the road right now. I would be pissed off if she went and she mowed the lawn. And I think she would probably be pissed off if I did the laundry too. Now, her whole shtick is, well, no, it's true, because her whole shtick is, well, you don't do it right, so just don't do the laundry. I'm going to do it. And I think I can, I've worked in highly technical fields. I think I can figure out the laundry.
I have always done my own laundry.
Doesn't want me to do it.
Yeah. Always done my own laundry going back to 4th grade because I come from a very big family and I would get stuff back and stuff would be missing. There was always a sock, a pair of underwear, something like that. So since I've been 10 years old, I've always done my own laundry. It's like, don't touch my stuff.
Right. Well, as soon as when my mom and my dad split up, I was required, and I think I was about 8 or 9 years old. From the time I was 8 or 9 years old, I was required to do my own laundry because mom wasn't there and I had to go do it. And then when my dad remarried, my stepmom would not even consider doing our laundry. We were teenagers at that point, would not even consider doing it because it's just like too much it was too beneath her for whatever reason. So I've been very used to that. I think when I got married, I was a little bit, it was nice to have a woman doing my laundry, but I was not used to that. It was really kind of a shock to my system. But now I've been married 23 years. I don't really even think about it now. But she would get upset if I would do that. And I think really it's because she sees that as her job. And if I'm doing her job, then she feels like she's sort of falling down on the job kind of thing. Whereas I feel the same way about doing yard work. And I've always been a guy who does yard work. And I'm a guy who can afford to have people do my lawns, but I have done every lawn that I've ever had because that's.
So what if your wife said, "But Rolo, I love mowing the lawn." Mm-hmm. You do that?
I would have to really consider. I would have to reconsider that. I don't think I would. I still wouldn't want her to do the lawn because I think there's that caveman side of me that says men should do that. Or unless she is into like landscaping or she has her own business, then she's got
a touch for that kind of stuff. But then she still doesn't have to mow the lawn. I mean, landscaping encompasses a lot of other things.
Right. Well, it's always been my duties to protect the family. It's always been my duty to, and you can take that however you want.
Real quick story here. Early when I got married, we had some pretty substantial property, so I had a riding mower, and I can't remember what it was, but the one time I let my wife do it, it's the best story ever. We kept it in a shed. She didn't lift the blade before she put it in the shed. I'm there like, you gotta be freaking kidding me! Do not touch this machine ever again. Mm-hmm. It was an expensive mower. Well, and she, the part where the door slides, that whole thing got ripped up by the blade. It engaged. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think that she's not like be competent. Sure, she's competent. She probably could do it, but I wouldn't want her to do it. And I'm looking at, and Broleaf just said, "Hey, mow the lawn and shovel snow." Yes, that's. If you've ever followed my Twitter feed, you know that I'm the guy that's out there removing snow. And that's not to say my wife doesn't shovel snow. She will. But I'm the guy that's doing most of it out there, and that's
if you're sitting on your ass watching ESPN.
Yeah,
she's out there shoveling.
No,
you
that's not
you
gonna
are
happen.
just a worthless piece of
That's not going to happen. So
No.
so here's the thing. When I'm reading this and I'm looking at them, I'm like, is this evidence of chore play? Is this a guy who thinks he's going to get laid because he went and created these viral posts about him like doing laundry and doing all these chores? Well, I think yes, this is, but you could say no, because the guy was just trying to do what guys do, right? I'm like, I feel kind of useless. I want to go out and do something. I'm going to go take care of I'm going to make sure that first of all, why are the dishes not done already anyways? And why, if you've dirtied up your own dishes, you should be, busting those anyways. But so you can go one way or the other, but I do think that this is chore play. Now, the thing about chore play is that it fundamentally ignores women's sexual function. So I think that there's this kind of moronic idea that particularly like egalitarian guys, most guys who are in beta marriages or relationships, they think that if they do these things, then that equals sex. And you and I have talked about the differences between transactional sex and validational sex. And that's what chore play comes back to is, are you in a transactional relationship or are you in a validational relationship? Because I would rather have my wife jump my bones because she is genuinely into having sex with me right then and there, rather than cookie time for good boy. Okay. I'm going to throw this one up here. I don't think we've ever been able to show this one on the
is this the stamp board?
This is the stamp board. Yes, the infamous stamp board.
This is just sad. If you've got one of these in your house, go get your belt and look for the nearest doorknob. Seriously.
Yeah. So I think you and I have been talking about this at least on Twitter for a while now.
Daddy's sticker chart. That means the kids know about it too, right?
Yes. So yeah. Well, okay. I would say that these guys, maybe the babies they're too young to really understand this, but the fact that this is on a bulletin board where everyone can see it, and the fact that this is made its way onto the internet is speaks volumes here. But
if you get 6 washing the dishes, you get a 12-pack of your favorite beer. If you put the toilet seat down, no nagging for a week. Oh man, this guy's just in a train wreck. If you change a blowout diaper, what does it say? Naked hula dance for yours truly. That's a little weird.
Yours truly, yeah.
Bathe the Rugrats. I won't donate your favorite pit-stained T-shirt. Pack the kids' lunch. One get out of the doghouse free card. It's like who's in control of this relationship.
Oh yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Is the primary thing in all of this is.
Don't take it off the screen. We got to have. I want the last 2. Those.
You do? Oh Jesus. Okay, if you insist, I'll put it back up there. Hang on. Okay.
The last one's the prize. That's the money shot.
Yeah, that is. Oh man, hang on one second.
Go ahead, complete your thought while you're pulling it up.
I was just gonna say is, 1 second. Let me grab that. There you go. Well, what this shows you is I like what you made the connection between frame and chore play.
Right.
Chore play doesn't exist if you have the frame of the relationship. Okay. The only reason we have anything called chore play is because a woman said, you know what, it'd be really nice if this guy would get off his ass and do some things around I would feel like I want to have sex with this guy. If you'd
help me out a little bit, I'd be more affectionate in the bedroom.
Well, right? And now here's the thing is, at some point in time, some woman and some man, some married couple went to a marriage counselor, and they said, well, the guy said, I'm not getting any sex. How come I'm not getting any sex? She doesn't want to have sex with me anymore. That's my main issue. What do I have to do? What hoops do I have to jump through in order for me to get sex? And a woman can't say, well, she can't be really overtly transactional about it. But if she says, well, if you would just help me around the house, I think that would put me in a more relaxed mood. Then but how, honey? How do I do that? Well, with Daddy's sticker chart. And so that's really the next connection here between chore play and the couples therapy and all that good stuff. You can continue if you'd like.
The next one is vacuum the car seats. You don't have to go to another annoying kid's birthday party. But my favorite at the end, clean up, throw up. Oh my God. This is like my weakness. It's like my kryptonite. I can't stand vomit. There's one thing I can't do with cleaning up, throw up. 6 times, you get a BJ.
Hummer.
You get a BJ.
Yeah.
What does the baby sideburns at the bottom mean?
I think I'm hoping that I'm taking this the right way, because there's a wrong way you could probably take this as well. I think that they mean baby sideburns as in like when a baby is like on your shoulder and it burps or something like that.
Oh, okay,
Gotcha. Gets the shit on
that kind of throw.
there. Yeah.
Can you imagine a guy having this on his refrigerator or in the kitchen?
Yeah.
And his best friend walks in and sees this. Oh,
yeah.
It's like the what is it, King of Queens? That'd be like an episode of that right there.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the thing is to a lot of guys in a transactional relationship, they think that they don't see anything wrong with this. They're like, hey, this is brilliant. Great. All I got to do is these things and then I'm going to get laid. And why does that seem like a good idea? Because they've never known anything other than a transactional nature with respect to sex. So it's, I do these things. I go to work. I bring home a paycheck. I buy you a car. I buy you a house. I put a roof over your head. And it's this transactional side of things. And this is like beta male deductive logic to, the best example that I can possibly think of here. But here's the thing that gets me. I'm just going to run through some of my thoughts here. You have to understand that the chore play is an old concept. It's something that's been going on for a very long time. Like you and I I think when I first started going on your show, I said something about cookie time for good boy. That's how long we've been, almost 2 years now. Yeah. Right. And so what happens here is that there's the theory and the rationale behind this is that men doing women's work frees a woman up to be more sexual, to be more relaxed, to, maybe she comes home from a hard day at work because she's making more money than you. And you feel like you owe it to her to rub her feet or to have the house cleaned up when she gets home. You can make a case to say, well, that's what an alpha male would do. He would go and take charge. And if there's things that need to be done around the house, he would go and do something like that so that she doesn't have to worry. Well, that's all fine and dandy until you get to the transactional nature of the whole thing, which is doing this not because you want to prove that you're the man. You're doing this because you think that it's going to put her in a more amenable mood to having sex with you later on. Because generally when I hear about things like this, when I hear about chore play and that dynamic, what that says to me is that the frame of that relationship is firmly in place with a woman. And that was the first thing that you said when we were looking at this chart right here. Right. You've completely lost frame.
Let me ask you this question here before you get back to your thoughts. Have you remember how you did the dating profile? You were looking at women's and then you did one of your own as a parody. Has any guy ever done a male version of this for the woman? A little sticker chart. You ought to do that, man. They'll blow up on you like they did on Rich.
Yeah. I was going to say on Rich, on Hunter, on Ajax, or on Alexander Cortez. If you go and you make any and I'm glad you talked about that because I was where I was going with this next is if you make any demands on a woman, if you expect her to do anything for your express pleasure, remember we talked about that, that women will lose their mind. They go apoplectic. And I think that, what is it? When this is a Royce quote, when you get closer, the closer you get to the truth, the louder feminists screech. Okay. So when you get to the point where you are pointing this out or you flip the script, that's when women lose their mind. That's actually a really good idea. That might be actually an interesting experiment to do, is to say,
or if you tell them how to do something, some women will have like a visceral reaction. It's like, you're saying I'm incompetent. I don't know how to do that. When it comes to various sexual escapades, right?
And so here's the other thing is when guys think that that's a good idea, they don't understand that what they are doing is they are negotiating desire. They think that if I do X, then you will give me Y. If I do these things and if I meet all of your prerequisites, then I'm going to be able to have sex with you, and I'm going to get your unbridled lust. If I wash dishes or something like that.
As if you can buy that, you can't. You can't. It's either there or it's not.
Yeah, and we already talked about how masculine work is what really turns women on. It's not domestic chores. And here's the thing is, when Jordan Peterson's talked about these studies before, but he's gotten these from evolutionary psychologists, and they've done studies on egalitarian countries, like places in Scandinavia, like Norway and Denmark, and places where these countries are prided on their egalitarianism between the sexes and having gender parity. And even in a state of the best state we can make as human beings, when it comes to egalitarianism, those men and women still opt for traditionally male or traditionally female gender rolled occupation. So women become nurses, men become engineers, that kind of stuff. The same thing applies when we're talking about domestic chores and domestic work. Women tend to opt for the things that women do, and men tend to opt for things that men do. And so, like, for instance, like me, I think it's just natural for me to want to go and pick up the dog poop, because that's just what I've done it when I was a teenager. I do it now. I feel like that's like dirty jobs and things like where it's like kind of unsanitary kind of stuff is something that the guy has to do. Now, there's going to be a lot of MGTOWs that are going to watch this and they're going to go, well, you're just perpetuating that. We could be more, men shouldn't have to do or do anything for a woman. Men shouldn't have to feel like they have to man up and pay for a date and all this. And I would say that even in the most egalitarian state, you're still going to feel that way. And women are going to feel the same way too. And even the most feminist women that will still say, I think the guy should still pay for the date. So
I can't go out to a dinner and have the woman pick up the tab. Mm-hmm. There's or even go, what do they call it when you go 50-50, whatever it is, go Dutch, Dutch, right? I can't do that, because that means what is it? So Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, beware the free lunch.
The free lunch, yeah.
The free lunch. And women are hesitant to take it too, because they think there's something owed to them. Right. But as a guy, there's something inside me, maybe it's the TradCon, whatever, okay, that will not allow me to do that. I feel like there's something less if I do that, if I let them pick up the tab.
Right, because what it does is it's an example of you being incompetent. Yeah. Because it says, I'm not competent enough to make enough money to take you out on a proper date, because I need to show, as a man, I need to be able to initiate. I have a burden of performance. Whatever, like, guys will give me all kinds of grief about saying, oh, it's not a burden. It should be either a benefit or a boon of performance or a challenge of performance. I'm like, no, it is a burden of performance. And the reason I put that out there and I worded it like that is because women do not have that burden of performance. In fact, they will get very upset, like you said, if you make a chart that expresses the same thing. In fact, we will get in all kinds of trouble if we went and did something like that. But if we see something like this up at a guy's house, the guy's just going to laugh it off and go, oh, women, I guess we'll never understand them.
So I was at Cracker Barrel the other day, and I've seen this couple. Hold on, I've seen this couple there before.
Good match.
I would describe them as nerds, just very awkward nerds, probably 30 to 35. And they do this every week. They go up, they split the bill. And I was behind them again because I wanted to see who was going to tip. The girl tipped five. It was $11.25 each. They must have got the same thing. The girl tipped, the guy didn't. I'm looking at him going, you're just a piece of crap, man. It's like, seriously. Yeah. I mean, how cheap do you have to be?
And everybody around them is thinking the same thing. Why? Because we are wired that way. That is our natural way of thinking about things. Even in the most egalitarian, equalist feminist, there's still going to be this idea that a guy is cheap if he's not going to buy a wedding ring for that kind of stuff. So, the other part I wanted to get into here as well is what this does. If you believe in this idea of chore play, it creates an obligation, and that obligation comes from a negotiated desire. And that'll kind of segue us into the next topic here. But what happens is, and I hate the fact that women, it's women that are promoting this. And I think I'm starting to see this a little bit more in some articles. But what it does is it promotes this idea that if a man does something, that he is owed sex. That if he is going to go and wash the dishes, that, hey, I wash the dishes. You know what that means? Giggity, giggity, giggity. You know, that's but see, that's what,
so
what
sad.
it means.
It's like, so sad, man.
Yeah. So it's this idea that there is some sort of tit for tat, right? There is some kind of quid pro quo. Yes. And so what happens is women will say, well, men are never owed sex, right? When we talk about like guys who, the kids in high, or, the school shooters or something, their girlfriend breaks up with them and they can't take rejection. They can't take no for an answer. And it doesn't matter what you do. You're never owed sex. Or do you remember, I think it was last winter, or maybe it was the winter before, there was a story that was going around about this woman who was on Tinder, who was hitting up guys, giving them the false hope that they were going to be able to go out with her if they cleared the snow off of her car, if they dug her out of some blizzard up in New York or something like that. And she had guys lining up to go and dig her out because that's just what a guy does, and playing on that, that protector instinct in guys. But now we've made it that much more easier to do. So it's easy to instill that idea of, it's the carrot in front of the donkey kind of thing. If I dangle this long enough, a guy's going to do something. It's that thirst. Okay, you're going to have that thirst, but then you're going to turn around and say, well, it doesn't matter what you do, you're never owed sex. Okay, well, if that's the case, then stop pretending, stop implying that you are owed sex if you wash the dishes, if you clean the toilets or whatever else. And another shining example of this was the comments that were in this viral Twitter feed from this guy who was out there, taking pictures of him doing the chores that women think he should do. And it's so sweet. Well, guess what? You just encouraged, 500,000 guys who see this to go and do the same thing and then expect to get sex because of it. Now, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but that's the implication. So if you don't want that to be out there, stop it.
When I watched or when I read the story and saw the pictures, it reminded me of when I was 17. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm the oldest of 13. Everybody had their own chore in the house. My chore every Friday night was to get down on my hands and knees and clean the linoleum kitchen floor with a knife, scrub it, clean it. Right. Wow. So I remember every once in a while, I get this thing in me where I'd want to stay up all night. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'd have the radio on. I'd go on a cleaning spree. I mean, I'd clean the toaster. Everything would be like, my parents come down in the morning. The kitchen would just be meticulously clean, from top to bottom. But I was doing it for a reason, because I wanted the car. I wanted the car on Saturday night so I could go out on a date. But that was the quid pro quo. It's like, Mom, Dad, look what I did in the kitchen. I didn't just do the floor. This thing's like brand new, right? But I did it for a reason. I was expecting something in return, and I would get that something in return.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
I was 17. I'm a kid. Well,
and that is, but see, you understand, and guys, I think guys probably understand this a little bit more than women do, like girls do, because I think, and I'm guilty of this too. It's like, I do things for my daughter as a father that I probably would not allow my son to do, because I would want my son to learn competence. I would want him to learn. Give me an example. Well, I mean, paying for something, right? Okay. Or like, she's the only daughter I have, so I'm kind of off the hook here because I can't like spread it. But like since she is a girl, I think of her as, well, I want to do this for her because she's a girl, but I wouldn't do these same things because I would want my son to learn to be a man. Whereas I want my daughter to learn to be more feminine, to have, we always complain about how, well, there's no femininity in the world. Well, I still want her to be independent. I still want her to earn her own money. I still want her to be, self-sufficient. Maybe independent's not really the word I'm looking for, but self-sufficient, but also feminine, and also be a girly girl. And that's what she's about. But there are things that I would not do for a son. Like, now, I don't know, maybe you've done this or maybe you're not. Did your dad buy you your first car?
Oh, no.
Here's the money for your own car, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. All of my kids, all 5 of my kids have bought their own car. I've never paid for a car. My son, Michael, who's in the Marine Corps, he had his first truck when he was 15 and a half. He didn't even have a driver's license, but they all paid for their own because I want them to be self-sufficient. The only one that didn't is the youngest. And the reason is my daughter, Rachel, who's number 2, gave the car she had to my youngest, Sarah. But I've never paid for a car for my kids. And I wouldn't, even if I was loaded, I wouldn't pay for it.
I was going to say, that was my next question, is like, would you pay for it if you had the money to do so?
No, because I want them to be self-sufficient. When you buy a car, I don't care how cheap it is. If it's only like $1,000, damn it, you bought that yourself. You're going to take pride in that because you earned that. You bought that, you earned it.
Yeah. See,
and
now,
if I give it to you, you're going to feel entitled to stuff.
Yeah. See, now I bought my daughter's car. I bought it out. It was easy to do. So I bought that one. I told her, I said, here's the title here. It's in your name. You're in charge of this. And this is the only car I'm ever going to buy you. So, use it to go to work, use it wisely. She still has to pay insurance. She still has to pay her own cell phone bill. She still has to pay, and she's in college. So I want her to be able to be a functioning human being. There is that, but I'm not so sure I would have bought a car for my son, because my dad didn't do it. My dad didn't do it.
3 girls, right? The school they go to, there's always the girl that's 16. Daddy buys her a brand new Camaro or some other sports car. That kid is. Here's what you're doing. You're creating a monster. The that some other guy is going to inherit down the road because she feels entitled to stuff. And I've talked to parents who do that, and they say, look, I would rather she concentrate on her grades right now, which sort of makes sense, right? Than be out there working to buy herself a car. So, but it's a fine line between, like I said, raising a monster and raising somebody who understands personal responsibility and that, you got to do it on your own. Because when you're grown up, here's the reality. When you're 25, 27, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. I talk about extreme ownership by Jocko Willink all the time. Once you take ownership for your life, it is tremendously empowering because, first of all, you're giving up something. You can't blame other people anymore, but now you're in charge.
Yeah.
Everything's on you.
Yes.
And that's an alpha trait. That's a guy thing.
Absolutely.
Women can be that way too.
I think that would be my logic behind doing something like that. Is I would want my son to be alpha, and in order to do that, you've got to. I used to think when my dad would not buy me a car.
Right.
Would never buy me a car. I had to pay for my own insurance, my own car, and it did. But it was kind of tough because you'd see all these guys who had rich fathers, and some of them would buy them cars, some of them might not, but every damn girl that had a car had it bought for her by daddy. Yeah. So
daddy's little princess.
Yeah,
daddy's little princess is going to become somebody else's nightmare down the road.
Yeah, little queen later on down the road. I have this on. We want to move on to couples therapy, and I've got the thing on load here. I'm hoping that the internet here will be good.
This is a new program that's going to be playing. Where's it? What's it on? HBO or something?
It's going to be on Showtime. It's going to be on Showtime, and this is
pay attention to the different couples they're showing here too, because it's not all traditional male-female.
Yeah, so I'm going to show this in the Chrome tab here. Oh, I got to share audio.
I'm going to mute my mic while you do it. Okay.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, so and this is about a 2-minute clip here. I want everybody to look at this because we're going to be using this here in a little bit. So, all right, let me grab this.
Babe, can you behave yourself, please? We had one deal.
I'll do. Okay, I will. Yes, we had a deal. I will try.
You keep dreaming and dark scheming. Yeah, you do.
Okay.
So, talk to me. In the beginning was fantastic.
My attraction to Amy was like biblical. When I saw her, the world stopped.
Fast forward, we no longer speak the same language.
I'm trans. I began my transition when I was 27.
We've always talked about wanting kids.
Having a baby, suddenly I'm a mom, and I had just really become a woman.
All my friends think you're vicious.
She doesn't trust me fully.
You're suspicious.
You're hurt. I just wish that you were as excited to have sex with me as I am to have sex with you.
Sex, I see it like eating. It's like sleeping. I have to do it every day.
There's a big part of me that has told him to fuck off.
I feel like I have a lot of power over them, so that's a little scary.
I don't have what she needs.
I'm raging.
You're raging, you look sad.
You're not being magnanimous.
Do you want to take something of what I'm saying to see if it's useful to you, or do you want to spar with me? Really overwhelming sense of responsibility.
It is one session in time. Not everything can happen.
All right. So a couple things I want to. Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. This
extraordinary.
Just kill it. They get the idea.
Yeah, they get the idea.
A couple things I want to throw out. I personally, as a guy, totally resent them throwing in either same-sex couples or what. This other guy that's like transgendered. We've always wanted to have a baby. 2 women can't have a kid. Okay. You can't have a kid, but they're throwing that in there and normalizing that like this is part of the problem.
Legitimize it.
I cannot stand the therapist, the counselor. I mean, I put on Twitter earlier. First, just for the record, okay, I would never, ever, ever go to a marriage counselor. Okay, the reason is because first of all, the deck is stacked against you. You're never going to win. What you're doing is you're negotiating the terms of your surrender. Okay. It's the last toll before divorce court.
Yep.
The only way I would ever go is if I was advised by an attorney, look, you got to do this, Pat, to make it look like you tried. Okay. But it's then to go to a female marriage counselor, it's like 2-on-1. There's no way you walk out of there. This chick's attitude just stinks. She's trying to be a guy.
Hmm.
The marriage counselor, you see it in her face,
Yeah,
this whole
yeah.
attitude that and you can just feel the tension there. No guy, even the guy that's now pretending he's a woman, none of those people are going to walk away winners from this therapy session. This is so stacked for the feminine imperative. It's not even funny.
Yeah, exactly. And I was really kind of, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but my future plan is to sort of find some way to dissect some of these. I mean, obviously, like, I don't want to sit there through a half an hour show, but I want to try to get to the highlights of some of these.
Like Donovan analyzes.
Yeah, like, well, like for instance, like when I was on with John from Modern Life Dating, we did a dissection video of him and being on one of his Twitch shows or something like that, and that something along those lines. I also did one when I was talking about, like, remember I did that one video breakdown of the I think it was the Indian girl who was on a dating show of some sorts, and I picked that apart as well. That was very, very popular. So I think I'm going to do something similar to that with this one. Now, I think we need to also. Okay, yeah.
The reason I would never go, is because it's an admission that I am a failure. I have failed. This relationship, this relationship is broken so badly that I can't fix it now. Mm-hmm. That means I'm the problem. I'm incompetent. And for me to go before somebody like that and say, look, I've talked to you about the Catholic thing before, okay? Right. Going to a priest who is single, who is celibate, who's never been married to anybody for advice on a marriage, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. That'd be like a doctor going to, I don't know what, a lawyer for medical advice. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, I agree. And I've always kind of butted heads with quote unquote therapists in this respect, because it's hard to say what's a success and what's not a success. I would be, to objectively say, well, they stayed together, but were they better together or were they better?
It is subjective on who determines what. Yeah, well, it worked for us. How did it work for you?
Well, and then the other thing you have to understand is that most divorce attorneys will tell a woman if she's planning to get divorced or if she's already made that decision in her mind. And women plan divorce far in advance, 6 months in advance. If they've already made this, if they've already fallen out of love with their spouse, then they usually make plan. They'll do something like we need to go to marriage counseling, or I'm going to go to the gym, and guys think, oh, she's going to the gym. That's great. She's getting in better shape for me. No, not for you. Again, for whoever comes after you because your turn is over. But so that's the other thing is attorneys will tell women, go to marriage counselor. And the thing, and I'll throw this out there right now, is anything you say in there can and will be used against you. Yeah. So if they call in the therapist into your divorce proceedings or whatever, that's going to happen. It's all.
Isn't there some sort of professional confidentiality to
yeah, I think so. But if it's a question of is he potentially violent or something like that, I think that they can do that. I was looking at some of I posted a link on my Twitter feed today. I picked up, I think it was on Forbes or Fortune 500. It's like the things that the 10 things marriage counselors will never tell you or don't want to tell you. Okay. And one of those things was they can use whatever you say in a court, in your divorce proceedings.
One of the things I saw in there, and I can't remember which woman did it, but they wouldn't talk. Okay. Mm-hmm. And for me, that is so frustrating. I've experienced that as a teacher, not just with female students, but with male students, but with adult women. And a lot of it has to do, I tend to be physically intimidating. Not that I'm going to hurt anybody, but I project a very strong image, and I don't know how you overcome that part where they could 2 days later tell you what was bugging them, but in the moment, it's like they're just stone. And I've experienced that with several women over the years, and it's frustrating for me as a guy, because as a guy, look, something's bugging you. Tell me what it is. We're going to fix it, right?
It's stonewalling you, yeah.
But it's not necessarily even stonewalling. It's out of a sense of, I don't know, intimidation, fear, or even frustration. I've heard frustration. It's like it doesn't matter what I say. It's one of those deals.
Yeah, the silent treatment, right?
Yeah, but it's an ongoing thing with men and women. It covers a wide variety of things. It's a communication difference. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we do communicate differently.
Yeah, we do, and I think that's one of my biggest problems with. I've got plenty, but one of my biggest problems with marriage counseling is it's based on this presumption that open communication will solve everything. And that's simply not true, because it's what you are communicating, not that you are communicating. It's what you are communicating to that person. And there's lots of different ways to communicate information between in a couple. And
covertly and overtly.
I've written several essays about how the differences in how men communicate overtly, how they focus on information and the content, whereas women focus on the feelings, the context, and are covert communicators, generally speaking. So when you get into that, I think there's this presumption that if you go to a marriage counselor, that you're on, what was it? Remember that movie Old School? And they both go to the marriage counselor in Old School, and they're in the trust nest. And
that's
and it's
wild.
like, I thought we were in the trust nest here. And so I think there's this presumption that guys can still say, like, you're free to say whatever you want, because of that open communication thing. But that doesn't mean that your wife's going to take it the way that you think it's going to be, or vice versa. Maybe.
Going back to high school with female teachers, I have always gotten this. It's not what you said, Patrick. It's the tone.
The tone, yes.
The tone. And it's like, okay, so, it doesn't matter that I'm a master communicator, that I pick my words very carefully. It's how I say it. It's how it's delivered.
Right.
And there's some truth to that. I think I told you the story before. One time I came home and I had been calling the house. Nobody was picking up. We had a home phone still and a cell phone. Nobody was picking up. Increasingly frustrated. I got home and I see the answering machine flashing like 6 or 7 messages. And I wasn't thinking, but they were all me. So I started listening to me. And I'm there like, wow, what a dick.
Yeah, sounds pretty aggressive. Yeah.
Because I'm supposedly calling somebody I love. It's like, where are you? Pick up the phone. This kind of stuff. It's like, it was almost like a hostage situation. And that's when I'm there like, well, I guess the tone really does matter sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and the reason you're going to hear that is because, remember, women, when they communicate, they're communicating covertly, first of all. And then second of all, it's how you communicate makes them feel. That's what they prioritize. So if you've got information here and you've got feeling here for guys, it's the opposite way for women. So it's like, how did that make me feel when he said what he said? It doesn't matter what the information was, and that might be important, but they're going to completely close off if you are saying it in the wrong way. That frustrates the hell out of guys, because guys want to say, look, there's a problem. I want to solve the problem in the most efficient, pragmatic way as possible. And this is the way I communicate. And that's the best way that we can do this. Oh, you made me feel bad because your tone, and guys just ripping their hair out because they can't understand, like, the difference in, like, why can't you communicate like a guy? Why can't you just understand what it is do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? That kind of stuff.
It's expecting her to be something she's not meant to be.
Well, and so now what you do is you go and you take a therapist and you put that therapist in between these two people who are communicating like that, or trying to figure things out.
Female therapist who thinks the same way as the woman does.
I'm kind of looking forward to seeing, like, what exactly these couples' problems are. There's that one black couple right there. I'm almost willing to say that there's probably some sexual issue there, like where she's not aroused by him or wants to have sex with him anymore.
I found, by the way, for the record, I found nobody in there remotely sexually attractive.
No.
None. Zero. It's like, it was like that Tinder thing last week. Let's just go to the next place. Maybe there's something better on Bumble.
Yeah, swipe. Yeah. Well, and then I to Showtime's credit, at least they're keeping this sort of like everyday guy. It's not like it's not like The Bachelorette or something like that. I mean, this is
the guy that said he wanted sex every day. Okay.
Yeah.
Normal guy. I would say that he's got options on the outside. Okay.
Yeah.
They're looking at him like he's from some foreign planet. We talked about Jeffrey Epstein a week or two ago, where he had to have 3 orgasms a day. Now that's a little over the top for a 67-year-old guy, but it is not outrageous for a guy to want to have sex on a frequent basis. Maybe not every day. Okay.
Every other day.
Well, a couple times a week, right? That is not abnormal. That is not outrageous. And when you get married, I think the guys at least think that, you're on board with this concept, this idea. Eventually, obviously, as time goes on, medical conditions, things of that nature, just age, it's going to wane. But that's really, you've talked about time. It is the glue. This is what makes the love between a husband and wife different than the way you love your child, you love your parents, anything like that. It's the glue that keeps you together. It's the reason you got together in the first place.
Right. Well, so yeah, I was going to say it's the reason why you were attracted to, why you thought, hey, I want to get in bed with this person.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you take that away, when you have to, or even if you have to negotiate that, if you're trying to negotiate like the desire to get back to a desire that you know is possible, that you know you had once before, that, you know, when you were dating, you couldn't keep your hands off of each other. And now you've been married for, you know, 5-10 years, and you're wondering what happened to the girl that couldn't wait to tear my clothes off.
Yeah.
And I think that you already probably know where I'm going to go with this, is that the biggest problem that I have with marriage counselors or couples counseling or whatever is that they're fundamentally based on negotiations. And the biggest point of disconnect I have ever had with Dr. Jordan Peterson is that he is very much an advocate of negotiating things within a relationship, particularly when you're in a marriage thing. And people can pick that apart. But when you go to a marriage counselor, that person, like you said, is a hostage negotiator. Now, it's a person that is saying, okay, Sally, Dave over here wants to have sex twice a week.
Yeah.
What does he have to do to get you to well, I'm so exhausted, I need him to do more chores around the house. If you
ever want to see her vagina again, this is what you must do.
Yes. Yeah.
The
So
whole list.
it's like, so what are your terms for sex twice a week? Why is it that, or what is it about Dave that you really, you say you love him, but you're not in love with him? Yeah. How does that work? And how do we get back to the love? And so
I don't want
a process of negotiation.
You've talked about duty sex before. I don't know about you, but I mean, that to me, that's just on par with starfish. Mm-hmm. It's like I want somebody that wants to be there as bad as I want to be there. Mm-hmm. And I've told you before, I'm an either all or nothing guy. If you've driven around with me, my windshield wipers are either on full or off. Mm-hmm. They're never somewhere in the middle. It's the way I live my life. Mm-hmm. But if you're not into, I don't even want to bother. I don't want to waste. I don't want to do anything half-ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I want genuine desire.
Yep.
That's what I want the most. I want to know that you're hot for me and I'm hot for you. I would much rather have sex twice a week than have sex, 5 or 6 times a week. And it was starfish duty sex as opposed to having hot monkey sex twice a week. And I'll tell you that I don't know if we talked about, did we talk about the guy who kept the spreadsheet of all the times that his wife turned him down, rejected him for sex? And that was another one of those things.
A lot of my listeners thought that was you. Because you talked about it, and then you did the thing where when you say love, for every 3, you only give her 2. So they think you're the spreadsheet guy.
They think I'm keeping tabs. No, I will tell you this though, is once I stopped like a lot of guys, they particularly guys who just get married and they're starting to deal with the fact that their wives are not as sexual after marriage as they were before. A lot of guys will keep quotas. They'll say, well, if she's not having sex with me 5 times a week, that means there's something wrong with our relationship. Mm-hmm. Right. And again, it's like, you've got to, I would very much love for every guy, not just myself included, but every guy to be able to have hot monkey sex 7 days a week. Wouldn't that be great? Once a day. That'd be fantastic. But that just simple, even logistically, that doesn't happen. Yeah. So what I would say, one of the things that really benefited me in the very beginning was I stopped keeping quotas. And I'll tell you the reason when I stopped keeping, like thinking, well, she hadn't had sex with me today or didn't get a blowjob today. When I stopped thinking that, I said, you know what, that's fine. It's on you. Whenever you want to have sex, you come to me and you tell me you're ready to have sex. Right now,
how long did it take?
Yeah. Now I'll initiate sometimes. She'll initiate. Now I'm in a little bit different position than most guys are. Okay. I have worked in an industry for a very long time where I'm around beautiful women all the time and beautiful guys too, but I'm always around beautiful people. Mm-hmm. And I'm always in social situations when I'm doing promotions and basically doing my work. So there is that imagination aspect, excuse me, for what I've always said is that I've got a post, and this is a chapter in the first book. It's called Imagination, which is imagination is the best toolbox or the tool in your red pill aware toolbox. What your wife is thinking, that dread aspect, whether it's passive dread or active dread, that is based on imagination. That is, what is he thinking? Why is he going to the gym all of a sudden? Why is he talking in different? Why did he stop keeping a quota? Why is he, and there's sometimes communicating requires you to not communicate, for you to pull back a little bit so that you can at least inspire this sense of wonder, this sense of mystery. Now, guys will tell me all the time, they ruined their chances at getting a second date because the first thing they do is they'll go out on the first date and they'll go to a restaurant and they believe in full disclosure. They tell their whole life story on the first date. They say, yeah, I was born in here and I worked here and then I went to here for school. And they want to get past all of the uncomfortable urgency part to get to the comfort part, because they believe that comfort is where the sex is at. And so guys carry that over, I think, into their long-term relationships. So everything's on the table and there's nothing mysterious about them. And there's no challenge. It's all predictability. And once you remove that, once you go back to being unpredictable, and that's another law of power, is to be unpredictable, because it keeps people guessing. It forces women to use their imagination so that they can sort of rediscover that desire again. And that's a natural way of desire. That's a natural, genuine desire. No marriage counselor is going to tell you that.
Predictability is what kills the love, the lust,
Mm-hmm.
that desire. Because I know exactly when he's going to come home. I know exactly what he's going to do. I know exactly what he's going to say. You've taken all of the mystery. The mystery is the thing that makes women hot for you.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to fill in those blanks, not you. You know who Curtis Lee was from the Guardian Angels, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Remember how he got the Gotti family tried to take him out? Mm-hmm. Every morning he goes to work a different way. Every morning, without fail. Because he can't let the mob know what he's actually doing anymore. Because he got in a routine, and that's how they were able to tag him, because they knew exactly how he was going to work. They knew where he'd be at a given time, and that's when they hit him. They shot him 5 times. Mm-hmm. So that's actually a great example of, he needs to change it up so he can live.
Yeah, exactly. They can stay on this planet.
By doing things differently, you also reignite or re-excite relationship. You can, if you do it right.
Yeah, I'm going to read this real quick here. Vance says, my wife never initiates. She told me, if you're waiting for me to come home or to come on to you, you'll be waiting forever. That is kind of sad right there. I hate to say that, because it reminds me of, and this might even be the same guy. I was talking with Ryan Stone about a guy who was trying to find some way to get his wife to initiate with him. Mm-hmm. And how if he didn't initiate, he'd be waiting like indefinitely, because she just simply doesn't have the desire or the genuine desire to do anything. And I thought about that, and I go, you know what would happen first, or what would your wife take notice first? That you haven't had sex in 3 weeks, or that the cable bill didn't get paid? What would she notice first? Would she notice that you haven't had sex in 3 weeks, or would she notice that
by the way, he is not alone. I dare say there's a lot of guys that are in relationships just like his. I think he said he was married 26 years. First thing I would do is before you decide to go in another direction, is I'd get her hormone levels checked. If he's been married 26 years, chances are she's probably near, or maybe even already through menopause.
Perimenopausal.
Yeah. And that is going to, once those hormones go, baby, that desire, you got a hormonal cocktail in you. That's why, we talked about guys having testosterone, 17 times more testosterone than women. Mm-hmm. That's what drives the libido. Mm-hmm. You heard the lady I had on my program on Friday. Yeah. She was born a woman, but she went through the transition to become a man. And when testosterone was introduced into her, her libido went through the roof. Mm-hmm. Because then she finally she goes, so that's what it's like to be a guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I told you that too. Like when I was talking about, there is this idea that women are just as sexual or more sexual than men are. And that if us evil men would just like lift all of the repressions of patriarchal society off of them, then they would just show us just how sexual they are. Well, guess what? We are doing that. And you know what? Women are a whole lot more sexual than we thought they were, but they are in no way more sexual.
By the way, Jay Rich says
it's a biological impossibility.
Right. Jay Rich says, Pat, please get a better mic and camera set up. He says, you're killing me. Hold on. First of all, I got a new mic. I've got about 10 comments here that I sound so much better today. The mic or the picture, I'm sorry. You can only do so much with this face.
Yeah.
the mic, everybody's telling me it sounds better except this one guy.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe we're going to have to get you a Logitech camera at some point.
So I have it right here. It's not top of the line.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get you a 4K one. But anyways, I was just going to say is that the other part about this is you're almost always going to be dealing with a female counselor in all of these. And that's the kiss of death right there. And I posted this prior to us coming on. I think according to the most recent statistics, 76% of all doctorates in psychology are going to women right now. And that is the God's honest, verifiable truth.
And you look at the education system, especially K through 8 and even in high school, it's female dominant, always has been. So you've got women teaching young boys. You don't have male mentors there, and they're teaching them like they're defective girls. You talk about that all the time.
There is that. I mean, there's the educational side of things, but now we're moving this into the realm of counseling. And so, of course, there's a female counselor in this show. And I'm not saying that there aren't any male counselors. Obviously, there are. Dr. Sean Smith comes to mind as well. But even I believe, I'm going to paraphrase Sean here. I'm probably going to butcher this, but he was saying something to the effect that a lot of counselors, when it comes to couples counseling, they're usually women, and they usually take the woman's side because everything that they know is framed in a feminine primary way. So the frame of the relationship is already, whether they know this or not, is already colored by the idea that the woman should be right, that whatever is in the woman's best interest is in the man's best interest. That when we talk about meeting needs, right? We always talk about how her needs aren't getting met. Her needs aren't getting met. How are you going to meet her needs? How are you going to do more chores around the house to make her feel more amorous towards you? And it's never about the guy. And because if it is about the guy, if it's about her measuring up, which of course goes against the feminist narrative of never doing anything for his express pleasure, but it also means he's incompetent. It means he is not self-sufficient, and he cannot meet his own needs by himself. And so we frame the entire session based on this understanding that at the end of the day, how we're going to frame success, how we're going to call this counseling session a success is going to be based on how well we've met the woman's needs. I
think a lot of women, they probably won't admit it, but a lot of women have this constant battle going on inside, where they have what they're intuitively, born with, versus what they've been taught. Most women, if you were to pull them aside, talk to them privately, say they're 35, 40 years old, they would love to not have to work. They would love to be at home, stay at home, at least, maybe part-time work on the outside, take care of the kids. They'd love to turn most of the stuff over to the guy. Okay. But they have this internal conflict because that's not what they've been taught. That's not what girls have been programmed to do for the last 40, 50 years. So they have this constant struggle going on inside their head. They want to be submissive. They want to have somebody that's going to look after them, that's going to be dominant, that's going to take care of them and protect them. Part of the problem is, and this is true, that whatever you want to call it, pool of guys that are like that has dwindled. I mean, it's a really tiny pool right now. There's very few guys out there that have all of those attributes that I talked about because they've actually been taught not to do it because they've been taught it's wrong.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I want to just get really quick here to Sam Whiskey. We haven't had too many supers, but I'm just going to throw this out there real quick. Sam Whiskey says, my brother is a therapist and he's walking into the slaughterhouse. I presume you mean by that he's getting married. Should he know better? Should a marriage therapist know better than to get married? That's kind of like the double whammy almost. It's like if you're a red pill and you're a marriage therapist and you've decided to get married, should he know better? Yeah, I should know better. I think a lot of people, and I should probably clarify this right now. I think a lot of people think that I'm down on marriage. I'm not down on marriage as an institution. I think men and women coming together is a good idea. I think men and women are complements to one another. I think that marriage as an institution is a fantastic idea, particularly when it's between two people that have love and genuine desire for each other. The problem is that the way we do it today, I can't advise it to anybody. So, so people say, well, Rollo, I can't believe you're destroying Western civilization because you're telling people not to get married. Oh, I'm just saying, do better. We can do better. We can make this. We can find some better way to go about this. And that's going to require a lot of sacrifice on the part of women.
A lot of guys talk themselves into thinking, yeah, you're right. But you know what? I found the exception.
Oh yeah. It's always a unicorn.
She's not like that. She's not like all the other ones. This is going to work. But they convince themselves that she's different.
She's the one, right? She's the soulmate. She's the one. She would never do anything. Yeah. Well, when I was having that debate with Dr. Piper, remember how he said, I just know she would never do anything like that. I just know. And I was thinking to myself, I've heard a lot of guys say, I've heard Rich Cooper say, well, I just know, and
here's the difference. Here's the difference, because Dr. Piper has reached the crescendo of, his career, right?
Yeah.
A college president, respected, all that kind of stuff. Here's the thing. Okay. Would so confidently, if you were a greeter at Walmart making, I don't know, 25, 30,000 a year, would you still be that sure that she wasn't going to leave?
Right.
Because first of all, if you were the greeter at Walmart, I don't think she would be with you because she was looking for higher value. She knew when she married you, when she met you, when you were younger, you might not have been there yet, but she recognized the potential. She latched onto that potential. She wrote it out, and she was right. Okay. But if you were just some Joe, some schmuck making 25, 30,000 a year, would you be as confident that she wouldn't go to something better?
Yeah.
Other than just out of a sense of religious obligation. Well, I said forever, so I guess I mean forever.
I think what's interesting in today's, with open hypergamy, what it is, and the manosphere, red pill, whatever you want to call it, this new kind of knowledge about intersexual dynamics. I think that for all of that, men have an instinctual understanding of how the game works. I think that even like you're just saying right there, if you were a sandwich artist at Subway, would you be as confident if you weren't? If you weren't as paid as you are? And okay, so it's easy when you go from extremes. So if you got a guy like Dan Blitzerian, he knows why the chicks are with him, right? If the guy's a sandwich artist at Subway, he knows that he's on shaky ground. If a millionaire says, hey, I really want you to be my husband, right? So you've got those extremes, but most guys don't live in those extremes. They live somewhere in the middle, and they're just. There was a really great, and I'll dig it up again. A really great flash animation. I think it's a flash animation chart of they did these studies of what occupations marry what other occupations are. So like these traditionally masculine occupations like an engineer, who do these guys mostly marry? And a lot of guys who are in traditionally what you would consider a masculine occupation tend to marry women who are in what we would consider more feminine occupations.
So a policeman marries a nurse.
So a policeman marries a nurse. Actually, a lot of people marry nurses, and they've done the statistical. I from what maybe they did it from government records or something like that, but it will have like a little line that will link from like the engineer to the nurse right here, so you can see what the most common occupations that marry. And as you would expect, they are traditionally masculine roles that are marrying the feminine roles.
Do those marriages tend to last longer?
I don't know. The study wasn't about that. It was just trying to say what occupations marry what other occupations.
Be interesting to track that.
And well, what's more interesting is the ones that are sort of in between. So if you've got a guy, you've got a guy who is maybe a physical therapist. Okay. Who does he marry, right? Or you got a guy who's a garbage collector. Who does that guy marry? Or like the blue collar workers, right? Not the white collar, the blue collar workers. Who do they marry, right? Who's a policeman marry? He marries the nurse, right? Or the fireman or whatever. Because I think probably more likely than not is because they're within proximity of each other. So a cop maybe goes into the hospital more or whatever. Right. Those kinds of stuff. There's going to be those connections because there's connections within the jobs, but it's also socioeconomic status. What occupation marries the other occupation?
So you mentioned Dan Blitzerian, okay, pretty wealthy for those guys who don't know. All right, one of the things this would drive me nuts. Fortunately, I don't have this problem. But if you're loaded, does she love me because she has genuine desire for me, or because of the money? I've got a congressman here, Kevin Hearn, who has done phenomenally well with McDonald's. He's got he had I think 16 franchises at once. He's worth anywhere between 36 and 96 million. Okay, and when he got married, this is his second marriage. I said, "Were you a multimillionaire when you married Tammy?" And he says, "No." He said, and I said, I can't remember if he threw it out or I threw it out. He goes, "I was only making 300,000 a year." But 300,000 a year is still pretty good money, right? So she might not have known that he was going to be worth as much as he is today, but that's a good paycheck.
It's a good chunk of change.
It's a good bet. It's a good bet.
All right,
But she loves him not because of the money, though, because that would drive me nuts. It's like, do you really love me because you love me, or is it my cash?
Right. Yeah. And here's the thing: does a guy like Dan Blitzerian, if he has trouble in his marriage, does he go to a marriage counselor?
Hell no.
Or does he just go, okay, but see, I'll
lawyer is what he does.
And that's the last point I wanted to make here, is that when you are in, and this kind of leads us, I don't know how long you want to go today, but this sort of leads us into the socioeconomic, the marriage market right here, is if you're going to a therapist in the first place, for most women, that's a confirmation that they are already with a beta guy, because that is another rule for that guy to follow. And that's the other part that ties all of this in here is if you believe in chore play, if you think if I do these things, then I'll get sex, that is a rule that a woman has established for you to jump. Those are the hoops that you have to jump through to get to. What that says to her is she's making rules for you because you're a beta. She
will break all of the rules for an alpha.
She'll break all of the rules for an alpha because she knows that alpha has options, and he is, first of all, he's high value in a sexual market value sense, but also that the kinds of things, the kinds of arguments, the kinds of conversations that like these married couples in this show were having, those don't take place for a high value guy. No. If that guy is alpha enough. Now, that's not to say that there aren't beta guys who are very, very wealthy. There's quite a few. Jeff Bezos comes to mind, of course. But his limitation for him isn't his money. His limitation is up here. It's his beta. It's his beta.
If we're going to go a little bit longer, let me grab a water. I'll be right back.
Yeah. That's fine. I've got some other stuff to talk about here anyways. Actually, this will be a really good time to show you who our sponsor is right now. If you guys don't mind hanging out for 1 second. This is The Curse of the High IQ by Aaron Clary. He is the official sponsor of this show, or the only sponsor. I would be open to other sponsors, and if anybody is looking for something to sponsor, or they would like to sponsor the show, I have to be very particular about what I take on as a sponsorship here. And one last thing is, where is that? Curse of the High IQ. And here is the URL for you to go check out. I actually have this book now, and I'm picking my way through it while I'm on the road. If you're looking in the back here, I am not at home in my home studio. I'm doing road work right now. So I had to do this all from the hotel. So anyways, that is The Curse of the High IQ by Aaron Clary. And let's see if I can kick that off of there now. All right. So, anyways, what I was going to say is the problem is, or the thing that goes along with the marriage counseling thing, is that if you are there in the first place, if you are sitting in the chair, if you've decided that, hey, we're going to go and do all this kind of stuff, what that is saying to her is that you are a guy who will jump through the hoops that she sets for you if it is her idea. Now, I think a lot of guys, I don't think we really covered this, Pat, is why do couples go to marriage counsel in the first place? Most of the time, there's two things. The two factors that break up couples the most, obviously, sex and money. Those are the two things that are the most frequently quoted as destroying the relationship. And of course, there's infidelity, but I would throw that into the sex side of things as well. So when there's infidelity in the relationship, I would say that's when maybe a woman says, "Well, he cheated on me. We need to go to counseling." Okay. I don't think, who initiates it more? Who do you think initiates it more? A man says, "Hey, we need to go to marriage counseling," or the woman that says,
woman.
Yeah, I would say so too, because she knows she's on her home territory. What's the most common thing that women will say? Their most common complaint about the guy that they're with is he doesn't listen. He won't listen to me. So I need to go to see a therapist so they can sit between the two of us. And so I can make him listen.
It's almost like we need a translator. You know,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you hear me, but you don't listen to me.
Mhm. Yeah.
Somebody wanted to know why we don't bring a woman on to teach us how to communicate with women better, or a guy for that matter. Where do you go to get better communication skills without giving up the frame, without compromising your alpha status or dominant status? Where do you go to get those communication skills?
Yeah, well, I think that presupposes who we should be communicating like. I would say that most guys who are dominant alpha men, they're not going to go and they're not even going to ask that question because they're going to expect that woman to be a part of their frame. So they're not going to say, well, I need to go take a class to help me learn how to communicate with my wife, or I need to go see a counselor to help me communicate with my wife. She either communicates on my terms or I don't communicate with her at all. So there's that aspect of it too. So if you are in this egalitarian relationship and you think that there is some sort of lack of communication between the two of you and that you can't sort of work it out, and you don't know most guys who think that they have to like learn to listen or they have to go to a counselor, these are the guys who believe that they are in an egalitarian marriage. They think that, well, I'm obviously falling short of this egalitarian thing. I need to become a better version of myself so that I can listen to her and understand what it is she's saying. What that requires of that guy to do is to convert his native language of overt communication over to becoming more female, to learn. It was like, what is it? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, for the love languages or this nonsense. Right. There's this expectation that men must come over to women's side and learn to speak.
I'll tell you who else pushes the counseling stuff is the church.
Oh yeah.
That's TradCon 101, where, you know, if you don't at least try, you know, you need to man up. You need to go in, you know, and talk with the counselor, you know, try to make things right. You need to be a better version of yourself. It's always, I'm trying to think of the guy's name that was with us at the 21 convention with the beard. The church always blames the guy. It's always the guy's fault. It's never the woman's fault. It's always the guy's fault.
Right. Yeah. It's always the guy's fault. And that is again, and that is again, a burden of performance. Right. We always presume that the guy has to do the work. And that's why people get really upset with me when I say a good relationship is not hard work. It is effortless. So if you feel like you have to work on everything all the time, that to me seems like hell, because it's this constant trying to keep up with the woman. It's constantly trying to figure out, it's trying to second guess her. It's constantly playing like 3D chess with her to understand what's coming next. And you feel, because you're a man, you feel that you have a burden of performance, that you have to do that because you're less of a man if you don't. You're less.
Are you upset? Are you upset?
Yeah.
Did I say something? Did I do something?
Yeah.
What's the matter? What's the matter? Hey, no, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so whenever I hear a guy say relationships are hard work, that's a well-trained beta. That's a guy who is definitely on the plantation because he's agreeing and trying to identify with the feminine, even after he's already in a relationship. He doesn't have to do that anymore. Like I hear a guy like Terry Crews. I want to hack up in disgust because he is parroting and mouthing back these platitudes that I would expect from like Dr. Phil or Oprah or whoever, and just listening to this kind of stuff. And when he doesn't need to say that, he doesn't need to go and do this, but he takes it upon himself to try to get other guys to sort of get back onto the plantation, so to speak, and to be more malleable to their women and to the feminine imperative, because there is this instinctive understanding that they are always wrong. That is always the guy's fault. So if you need to work on your relationship, it's not she needs to work on a relationship. It's you as a dude. You always have to work on a relationship. And
when you see a couple that's split up, if you meet
that's not egalitarian either, by the way.
But if you meet the woman, right, it's almost presupposed. What happened? What did he do to you? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the way your thinking goes. It's not the other way around. It's like, what did you do to him?
Right.
You know, there's a presumption that it is always the guy's fault. He must have done something. Otherwise, you'd still be with him.
Yeah, there's something wrong. Well, and that's the whole thing is when I talk about that, and I think I've done this on your show, is when I talk about how 70+% of women initiate divorce, The first thing, what's the first thing out of any woman's mouth? Well, what did he do to deserve that? If men were just better, then women wouldn't feel like they have to initiate all the time. It's this constant qualification. And if you're a beta guy, you probably already believe in this anyways, that you have to qualify. One of the toughest things that I have to deal with when I'm like unplugging guys from the matrix or trying to make them red pill aware is to say, look, you are the prize. You're going to be the prize. If you're not now, you will be soon. As soon as you get into your peak, sexual market value peak years, you're going to be in a position to be able to be a sexual selector as opposed to being the sexual beggar, like being the one who has to qualify for her acceptance. It'll be the other way around. Guys, that's like a foreign thought to most beta guys because they believe that if they think too much of themselves, that makes them arrogant or that makes them full of themselves, and no woman wants to deal with that. And so you have to constantly play this game of, way we need to make it work. I need to put more effort. I need to be a better listener. I need to be more sensitive. I need to be more like a woman. And when you take all of that and you put it into a context of a marriage counselor, now you've got a woman who agrees with the wife. And even if you go in there and you believe that, now you're against yourself, your wife's against you, and the counselor's against you as well.
So what do we want to move on to here?
I just want to really quick. We can finish up here, but I would just.
Do we have questions too?
I don't have any right now, to be honest with you. I've been trying to keep up with it. I think if I have them, then Sam will send them on to me.
Make sure you hit the like button, please.
Yeah, please hit the like button. Also, just really quickly, there was a story about how men are no longer marriage material anymore because they don't have jobs and because they're not meeting that sort of burden of performance in this new economy. And you and I talked about it. We don't have to get into that. I thought we pretty much covered that throughout this whole thing. So I think probably we can tighten this. We can quit here. So if you are a fan of the show, please subscribe. Yeah, we had a really good turnout today too. And if there's questions that you have about this, please put them in the comments below. I'm paying a lot more attention to the comments these days because that's where I'm sort of getting a lot of feedback for upcoming shows or new shows.
There were a couple of super chats in there. I can't remember.
I know. Now I hate it because the way that StreamYard works is I have to kind of like fish back through them to find them. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got some here. Sam just sent me some. Hang on.
Here's one. It says, I notice a lot. This is from Sam Whiskey. I notice a lot of 40 plus men are desperate to get married. Why? And thanks for a good show.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. Why are they, what do you say? 40
plus? Why? It's like women when they used to be 25. I got to get married or I'm going to be an old maid. That's not true anymore. But why is it with guys at 40? It's like, oh, I got to get married now.
That's the myth of the lonely old man. Oh, okay. Here we go. I'm sorry. We do actually have quite a few super chats here. We'll work our way through those. I think primarily it's there a lot of guys, particularly in that generation, who are just now either in their late 40s or their late 30s or their early 40s. I think there's this fear of being the lonely old man. It's sort of what I was writing about.
I don't want to die alone.
I don't want to die alone. I need to have a legacy. And I think that there is, I want to explore this maybe in an essay at some point, but I think that there is a biological, maybe an evolutionary need, part of our firmware that wants to see our genetic legacy go on. I mean, obviously that's kind of an evolutionary, desire. Men want to see paternity. I think that if there's sort of a bunch of guys that want to do that at 40, I think you and I have talked about guys going into sort of an epiphany phase themselves, where they're like, oh, I've had my fill of cheap and easy, meaningless sex, and now I want to find something real and move on with my life and have babies and live happily ever after in this domestic bliss. I think that there's probably something to that. That's something we should probably explore in a future show. But do men have an epiphany phase? Do they say, hey, you know what, I'm done with all that? I think a lot of guys think that they do. I think that particularly beta guys would like to would like to convince themselves that they all want to get out of the game now, and I've had enough of this cheap easy stuff. I want to find something real, and really they haven't had all that much experience. It's just that they feel like that's the only thing that's going to get them off the hook in a red pill aware sense. So getting married is the only way to do it. So this is the way I'm going to have to go with it. Let's see. YOLO here says this is we got 55 Norwegian cookies. It says, "Hi, Rolla. Many dating coaches say we should take our girlfriend out once a week and make them feel beautiful and wanted. What do you think about this?" I'm not too up on dating coaches to begin with. Now, here's the thing: is if you have a girlfriend in the first place, you're not dating her anymore. You're in a monogamous relationship. So I think really what you're asking me is, should you do a date night? Should you this is very common from the Church of Oprah. Well, you got to keep it fresh, man. Everybody say, you got to keep it fresh. You got to do a date night. You got to take her out to a nice fancy dinner at a good steakhouse or something like that. You got to do something really sweet for her. Otherwise, it's going to get stale and she won't want to have sex with you. Again, that's negotiation. Remember when we talk about romance and I told you that, sometimes a bag of Skittles or a gum wrapper ring can have more emotional meaning to a woman than a date night or something. It's like, what are you doing it for? Why do you feel like you need to do that in the first place? Do guys need to do that? I think that just should be something you do anyways. Why do you feel like it's some sort of quota? Why do you think that it's some sort of litmus test that you have to do to keep it fresh? If you're in a relationship that's based on mutual, genuine desire, you're going to do this anyways. You're not going to say, "Oh, geez, it's been 3 weeks since I did that." It's like the same thing you were talking about with respect to the 2/3 rule. Well, women lose their minds if you keep a spreadsheet, and you don't need to do that. You don't keep a spreadsheet. Like when women say, "Well, you play all these games, you play all these horrible games with women because you believe in the 2/3 rule." Well, I don't do that. I don't go, well, she gave me 3 kisses and I guess I can give her 2. I don't think in those ways. It's just the natural way that my relationship works. And I would say, and maybe you can correct me here if I'm wrong, Pat, but do you do something like this with your wife? I don't know if I've ever asked you, what's the relationship
like what?
with your wife is like? Are you emotionally available for her? These are some buzzwords that you're going to hear from counseling, right? Are you emotionally available for her? Yes. Are you living up to your duties as being a good, loving husband? And that's on the dude.
I have fallen short of the mark. I will tell you this. I guess this is more of a trad kind of thing, but I believe the guy should be a shoulder to cry on, but I'm not going to be an emotional tampon.
Yeah.
As far as me being a font of emotions for anybody, it doesn't matter. It's laughable.
He's a big teddy bear. Yeah.
It's just, I'm not the guy that cries on the radio. That's Glenn Beck. Yeah. So I guess the answer to that is no.
I think when you are in a good relationship, like I was saying before, good relationship is effortless. It's not something that you have to think. Relationships work best when they're going good and you don't have to think about them all that much. And you don't have to, when she desires you and you desire her and your roles, and she, what about the woman? Shouldn't she say, "Hey, we're going to go on date night," or "I really want to treat you to something nice," or what? Why is it always on the dude? Especially if we live in if we're in an egalitarian relationship, shouldn't she be doing the same thing?
I know women that there is just programmed into them. They might want to go on a date with you. Mm-hmm. They might want to do something special with you. But either for religious reasons or just the way they've been raised, they've been taught, and it's sort of old school, that's not, if you do that, he's going to see you as aggressive, as a hussy. Mm-hmm. Even if you've been married to them, it's just not in their wing house. They don't,
their wing.
They, and I think you brought this up before, and I don't mean this in a bad way. They tend to think of themselves more than they think of you. Mm-hmm. Because they're wrapped up in themselves,
right? And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they do that? If anyone has ever, if the feminine primary social order teaches you that you should only ever think about date nights and keeping it fresh and all this other stuff, if that's all you ever hear and that's all she ever hears and that's all you as the guy ever do, how is she? What's her incentive? What's her motivation? There's nothing left to the imagination for her.
If you've got genuine desire for somebody, okay, you shouldn't have to entice them with this thing or that thing. Both of you should be happy just being together, just sitting on a couch. You're happy doing that because you are that into each other.
Yep.
That's what you want to do.
I'll let you into the mind or the relationship of the Tomasi household. One of the best things, and I think probably if you want to talk, we're going to talk about romance. The best things that I do with my wife is sit on the couch, have coffee, and talk with my wife. That's one of the greatest things I do.
The talking thing, not only talking but listening to them talk is more important to women than roses, a movie, a fancy dinner. A guy, if a woman has been either in a relationship or a series of relationships where she's basically been ignored, locked out, just been told she's stupid, whatever. Okay. If you're a guy and you actually listen to her, okay. I mean, really listen to her, talk with her, engage with her. That's a gold. That's a gold.
Yeah. Or you want to. Yeah.
Whereas guys tend to fall in love with their eyes, Women fall in love up here. If you get in upstairs, you can have whatever you want. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's how they fall in love. And if you're actually a guy that's listening to her, engaging her, talking to her in a way that no other guy ever has, that's a sign. It's a sign to her that you genuinely desire her. I mean, other than the hot red hot monkey sex, whatever you want to call it, okay. The fact that you actually care about what she's saying and listen to her is going to be more meaningful to her. It's going to, whatever you call it, racking up points or whatever. It's going to make an emotional connection with her.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think I do believe it needs to be a two-way street, but you're 100% right. And for anybody who's going to watch this and say, oh man, Rollo and Pat are just getting all mushy gushy. The thing is if you go and you look at any of the early pickup artists, they said pretty much the same thing. You need to get inside of that girl's head. You need to live in her head rent free, I believe is the term that it was used. Okay. Chris B in Philly here says, what is the nickname for a woman who is alpha? I nickname them hyenas. Okay. So in fact, go on my site, go into the search engine and type in hyenas and you will see exactly what I mean. Thank you, Chris. He said he meant to do $20, but okay. I'll take the two. Ibo says, my experience on Davy Furtado's question, dating ugly girls to gain experience or raise SMV is not worth it. Sex is no fun. And when other women see you do it with an ugly girl, it will not raise your SMV. What is your opinions of this? I understand the logic behind it. I'll just describe what they're talking about here to you, Pat. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, but like in pickup artist circles, there's this idea that for guys who are less confident or just starting to learn how to employ game, that they have to, it's always better for them to go for a woman that is like maybe below their own SMV or I don't want to call it whale hunting or anything, but like to go below what your SMV would be so that you can practice game and see how well it works. And I think that a lot of guys get themselves into trouble in that because what happens is you sort of instill this false sense of hope or this false sense of attraction in that girl. And I think it's kind of cruel from an ethical standpoint. So there's that aspect as well. Should you do it for practice? I think that there are ways to run game on women that don't include an emotional investment. You can do that, and if you can practice that well enough, then yeah. But I think that there's a line that you're going to cross where the girl's going to sort of have this false sense of hope that you're actually looking for a relationship with her, because the girls who are less attractive, that's the hope they're looking for.
I knew two brothers back in Pennsylvania. I told you the story before. They would deliberately go out on a Friday and Saturday night looking for women that were, below whatever their market value was, generally a heavy-set girl. And their rationale was, and they had no ethics, okay, but their rationale was there's less competition, and because they're not often hit on, they're going to put out for you like they've never put out for anybody else. They're going to put on a show you couldn't get from anybody else. But again, there's an ethical question. You're just using people.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're going to build up so much negative karma out there. Someday it's going to come back.
Now, okay. So here's the counter to that, though, we've had lots of discussion of this on the Red Man Group and Rule Zero as well. Is leaving a woman better than you found her First off, there is no way that you're going to be able to do that. So just the act of you running game on a girl, if you're just trying to get her as a plate, do so in the sense that you're keeping her at arm's distance and you are non-exclusive. I've always said that from the very beginning of my book. If you look at all 6 chapters of my plate theory chapters there, I've always said that. I said, you know, if you first of all, you don't have to have sex with every single one of them. If you are, great. If not, okay. But you're never going to leave them better than you found them, because the act of you involving yourself with them in the first place presents them with at least a moderate amount of emotional investment, enough to say, I want to have sex with this guy, or I don't.
You're building up a false sense of hope.
You're building up a false sense of hope. And so I always tell guys, you need to be above board when you are non-exclusive with the girl. That's the thing. People say, well, why is Rolo so bent out of shape about this poly thing? I'm bent out of shape of it because it tries to imitate this idea that you can have this standby monogamy that you can come back to, and you can play house with this girl or this guy or many guys, depending on how it works. You can have all of that, and then you can still go out and play the field and be non-exclusive with other people. I'm thinking, why would you not just want to be non-exclusive, be above board, and say, this is how it's going to work. If Mode 1 by Roger Curry, be direct, be upfront, say, I like you, I want to have sex with you, everything's great, but I'm not going to be exclusive with you. If you're good with that, we can deal. But I think there needs to be that always needs to be up front. You need to honestly spin plates, not just be like, well, I've got this girl over here and she doesn't know about this one and she doesn't know about that one. And that's the first thing guys will tell me is like, I can't spin plates, Rolo, because I can't keep them all straight, or I can't keep it secret from girl A with girl B and girl C, and I'm afraid girl D is going to meet girl A, and it's like, don't do that. You need to be, like I've said this before, is like, women will gladly share an alpha rather than be saddled with a faithful beta. But that alpha, if you're going to spin plates, you still need to be above board with all that. So yeah, there is an ethical explanation.
I don't know what guy seriously wants to share his woman with other people. That's to me, it's counterintuitive. It's not a masculine trait. It's a big trait. So, and I gotta wrap things up here. So
okay, we are done. I have one $5 one from Parker Soviar right here. He says, "Thanks, Pat. These are great." And that will be that. And that is in the book.
Are you doing anything this week, show wise?
I am not this week. I will be on Saturday. I will be on another terrestrial radio show in Chicago. It's called Into the Gap. It'll be my second time being on with these guys. They're an AM radio station. I'll send you the link. Actually, I just posted the last one I did, and this was like back at the beginning of the month. And they're talking about maybe having me on there like maybe once a month. So that's something else that I'm doing right now. That will be on Saturday. Also, Rule Zero, I'm going to be hosting that on Saturday. That will be at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you don't get the alerts, you probably want to do that now. Please hit the like button if you haven't done that as well. Thank you very much for all of the super chats. It's what's helping us like get new cameras and new mics and everything else. So thank you for all of that, all the support here. I will be on with you on Friday morning at 9:05 Eastern on AM 11.
By the way, people have been asking about the podcast. Okay, don't actually go to the website. I always put the podcast up on Twitter. It'll be linked to Rolo. Just go to his feed or my feed. It will be up there. They're changing some things on the website right now, so the archives aren't available. But the latest will always be up on my Twitter feed or on Rolo's.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, right. And that's it. Thanks.
Don't forget to hit the like button too.
Yep. See you guys. Bye-bye.